Okay, let's talk about Halligan bars and how not all of them are created equal. Today I'll discuss three different bars that I'm familiar with. The Halligan bar at the bottom, that's a Paratech 3-piece bar. The Halligan in the middle, that's a first generation Leatherhead Tools Halligan. And then the Halligan on the top, that's your Pro bar. So these are the three bars that I've been familiar with throughout my career. I just want to point out my department, we also have now the second generation of Leatherhead Tools Halligan bar, and I appreciate that they have the notches etched into them that marks crotch of the forks are, for example. And they also have it etched in where the 2-inch marks are on your adze and your forks for outward opening doors as well. So I appreciate that. And I'll also just point out in this picture, they taken some of the curvature out of their adze. So to me, this is also a benefit on the second generation of Leatherhead Tools Halligan bars. First, let's look at a 3-piece pin bar versus a 1-piece forged Halligan bar and the differences between the two. A 3-piece bar is held together by pins, which creates weak points, and some people say they are more likely to break. So in this video, I'm just showing, yes, there's a pin holding on the adze and pick portion of the Halligan bar, and then there's also a pin that holds on the fork. So again, this is a 3-piece Halligan bar put together. Now, if you're wondering why do they make them in 3 pieces, and it's really just because they're easier to make and cheaper to mass produce. And again, a lot of the negative comments I hear about this is that they break easier. Throughout my career, I've never seen a 3-piece bar break myself. Unfortunately, I have witnessed a Leatherhead Tools Halligan bar break, and it was, for us, it was always in the forks. And I don't know a lot about forging metal. I do understand that possibly if this metal was cooled too fast, that could create weak points, and that might be why it broke. But again, I'm not real educated on forging metal myself. Speaking of forks, let's just look at some fork design features. And really it's the thickness of the forks we want to look at. So again, if you look at this picture, the bar on the top, that's your Paratech 3-piece bar with very thick forks. The bar in the middle is your Leatherhead Tools one. And I actually appreciate that they have very thin forks on this bar. And the tool at the bottom, that's your Pro bar. And to me, they're kind of in the middle. And a lot of people, when they talk about dressing their bars, they will make the forks here a bit thinner. Because to me, that does benefit if you have a tight inward opening door and you need to use your forks. Having them thinner here make it easier to drive the forks between the door and the door frame. But the question a rookie firefighter I would ask is which is better? Is it thick or thin forks? And I'll be honest, when I was younger on the job, I just assumed the thicker fork would be better because it would create more space as you drive it between the door and the frame. But the reality is, and I learned this through experience eventually, but the thicker the fork is, the harder it is to drive that tool between the door and the frame. And it was actually Sam Hiddle. I know he uses a picture like this. And if you're wondering what this is, these are supposed to be little wagons, okay? And he just asks, he's like, which hill here would you rather drag your wagon up? And I mean, obviously the hill that's less steep is going to be easier. And really, that's the truth with the forks too. The thinner they are, the easier they are to drive between a door and the door frame. And then obviously the thicker they are, you're going to have to work a lot harder to get those in between them. Now let's move on to the adze and some design features of it. I mentioned it a bit earlier, the adze curvature. And basically, a slightly curved adze makes it easier to angle around doors versus a straight one. And I'm talking specifically when we are trying to set our tool on an outward opening door. So again, if we look at this picture on the right, our Pro bar, it does have a slight curvature to the adze. This first generation Leatherhead Tools, they have a more pronounced adze curvature. And then you can see the Paratech, it's got no curve at all. It's flat. So again, when you're trying to set your tool on an outward opening door, having a flat adze can make it much harder to get your tool between the door and the door frame. More curve could make it easier. And I'll be honest, with adzes that have a very pronounced curve, I've heard both. That some people find that it skins the door more. And I've also heard people say that it skins the door less. And I'll be honest, I've only ever witnessed a door get skinned once in my career, and it was an easy fix. And I honestly, I don't even remember what type of bar we were using when we were forcing that door. And if you don't know what skinning the door means, some doors, again, this would be a metal door, they have seams. Sometimes it's in the middle of the door, or sometimes it's on the outside edge of the door. And sometimes, again, when you're trying to set your adze in between the door and the frame, sometimes your adze will fall into the seam, whether it's in the middle or if it's on the back edge of the door. And as you can imagine, that would make the door hard to force open because your adze is stuck literally inside the door. So that's what skinning the door was, if you're not sure what that meant. And our goal is to get our adze on the back side of the door so we can force it. The only other negative I can think, and this is, to me, this is personal experience. If you have an adze with a more pronounced curve, to me as the axe firefighter, it is harder to strike this adze. I found my axe would slide more as opposed to flat one versus a slightly curved adze. And that was just my experience as an axe firefighter. Now let's move on to the adze bevel. And if you don't know what that is, it's literally the bevel they put on the adze. And the reason they put that is just so it's easier to drive the adze between the door and a door frame. So an adze with the bevel on the bottom, which is this picture here. And again, this is a Paratech 3-piece bar. They put their adze bevel on the bottom. It just creates a tendency for your tool to slip. And this is why. This is a picture I borrow from Sean Wilson from Rise Above Training. But basically, if you're going to gap an inward opening door, so hopefully these two pictures on the right, you understand what I'm talking about here. If we're going to gap an inward opening door, your door stop that you're pushing off of, it's about 1/2 inch. That's all the surface area you get to rest your adze on when you go to do that gap. And if you've got a bevel on your adze, that just decreases the amount of surface area that your adze has to push off of, which unfortunately creates a tendency for your tool to slip. Now, preferably, we would want the adze bevel on the top of the adze because it gives you more surface area on the door stop, and which equals less slipping. And again, hopefully this makes sense. If our door stop is about 1/2 inch, and again, I'm just estimating this, with the adze bevel on the top of your adze, you have more surface area here touching the door stop, so your tool is less likely to slip when you go to do a gap down on an inward. Whether it's a gap down or a gap up, depending which way your door swings, but your tool is less likely to slip.